Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening. Depends on where you're joining us, but I know there's a lot of people that are joining us from across the globe today. We've got great friends that are joining us in America, in Australia, and throughout Europe as well. So a warm welcome to everybody that's joining the broadcast today. And thank you for being there. I'm Jenny Bailey from the Agile Business Consortium. We're the not-for-profit member organisation who are leading, promoting, and enabling business agility worldwide. So just before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping for everybody, really. This session is being recorded. We always record our broadcasts and our webinars because we use them really for resources, and they are such useful resources that we can share with everybody who's interested in the topics that we actually hold here for our webinars. So what I'll do is, if you've registered for the webinar, obviously you're with us today, you will receive the broadcast link in the follow-up email that I send out to everybody. Also questions. Now, I've received a lot of questions on email, and thank you to everybody who's sent questions through to me. I really do appreciate it. The engagement on our webinars is extremely strong, so thank you. So if you wish to, and I invite you really to send some questions through to us, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have your viewpoints, definitely. So please use the question box there, as you can see in the middle of the screen. Type the questions through, they'll come through to me, and we'll have time at the end of the session to actually put questions to my guest. But if they're relevant and topical at the right time, I'll try and integrate them also. And lastly there, your feedback. Obviously, we want to know we're doing a good job, and we want to know we're doing a bad job if we are doing a bad job, so we can improve. So please send your feedback through to us, to me at jenny@agilebusiness.org. It would be wonderful, absolutely great to hear from you. So without further ado, I am joined today by Pia-Maria Thoren. Now that name has become very well known in Agile HR. Pia-Maria has done lots now in this sector. She's been to many conferences and spoken across the globe now. You may know her as she's also the author of Agile People, the radical approach for HR and managers that leads to motivated employees. She's a founder of Agile People. She specializes in Agile HR, Agile leadership and motivation, and her main focus is to contribute to creating organizations where people perform better and feel engaged. Now, she's just informed me that recently she's been working with a bank in Sweden and with a number of workshops, and she may have lost her voice. So I've got everything crossed that Pia-Maria, your voice is going to stand the test of time, and you can be with us today. So welcome, Pia-Maria.
Hi, Jenny. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be with you, and I hope my voice will hold for this webinar. I'm sure I will be able to manage this as well.
Yeah. It's sounding loud and strong to me now, so that's great. Keep the water, great. Because you shocked me a little bit earlier, saying I don't know if my voice is going to stand up.
Yeah. No worries.
Brilliant. No, we appreciate it. We really do. So when we've been discussing Agile HR, we've been looking at the changes, really, I guess, haven't we? And the advantages that being Agile can bring to HR. As Agile is obviously coming into business agility in a great way now, and it's working within organizations. HR is obviously a sector where it's really making a difference. But can you just explain to us, the main advantages as you see it? That would be really great for a start.
Yeah, so we could start by saying that there are two perspectives really of Agile HR. It's the internal HR department where you can use Agile methodologies like daily stand-ups, retrospectives, T-shaped HR people, and work internally in HR with the Agile principles and the tools and the methods. And then there is the deliverables, the programs, the services, the stuff that you are delivering to the organization. That also has to be Agile, right? Breathe the Agile principles and the mindset, and be made in a way that enhances agility in the whole organization. So these are the two different perspectives, main perspectives that I see for Agile HR. And the advantages, I'm sure that many of the people who are listening here are very aware of the advantages that Agile bring in general, and it's not different for HR really. We have a better and more communication with the help of the Agile principles. We have shorter feedback loops. We get feedback from the customers. The customers for HR are employees and managers. and we get faster results, and we also increase engagement, since it's a lot about delegating responsibility to the people who has the knowledge and who can make the right decisions closer to the external customers. So this is about self-management, increasing self-management, supporting the increase of self-management in the organization. So there are many more advantages, of course. These are some of them, very basic ones.
Absolutely. And your experience with HR, can we just touch on that, please? Because obviously there was a world before Agile where Agile didn't come into the HR realm, didn't it?
Definitely. I've been working with HR for 20 years. And I've been implementing ERP solutions, talent management solutions like SuccessFactors, Workday, Cornerstone on Demand. I've been sitting on the IT side, working together with HR, deep diving into the HR processes to configure them to suit these big, IT system solutions, and rolling them out with processes and tools all over the world. So I was always the project manager in these projects, trying to create one HR with standardized processes and systems everywhere in large international organizations, rolling them out. And I could see very little value being created from that. And it was in 2009 that I went to an Agile master course, and my whole worldview changed, you could say, because something opened up in me, and I understood that I'm really an Agile person, and the way I worked was not leading to a lot of value creation for my customer. I was trying to persuade people that they should standardize processes, and this is not the way to create value, in my opinion, today, of course. So everything has changed dramatically, and I started to apply my new knowledge on leadership, on HR, because I was so close with HR, and I saw that these processes that they are using and that we are implementing in the IT systems, they are not bringing value to the people out there. So there was a change needed in the way they were working and delivering value. So then we started to experiment in these HR organizations with other ways of working with a very good result. So then I started more and more to deep dive into Agile HR and Agile leadership. And this is, Agile People is really two sides of the same coin, as I see it. It's Agile HR and it's Agile leadership, because it's HR and leaders who have the power to create prerequisites and conditions for people to be happy and perform. And this is what we need to find motivation and engagement for people to create successful organizations. It's the basis.
I'm just interested, was there much resistance from the kind of the norm sort of sector when you started kind of going, we can do this slightly differently?
It's still a lot of resistance. It's always been a lot of resistance, of course. Yes, it is. People are a bit skeptical. They don't understand really how can we move from cause and effect thinking, if we do this, we will get that, to move in. Because in a complex world, we need to work a lot more with trial and error and experimentation. And this is still not part of the management, the bulk of management. Management hasn't developed at all in the last 100 years, we could say. It's still the same tools and techniques that they used on Ford's time when he worked with standardization in his factories producing the T-Ford. Right. And it was very suitable on this time, but today it's not only suitable, and Taylorism and all these things, it doesn't apply anymore to organizations, but management hasn't developed at all during this time. And that's why it's so important that organizations like like yours and like Agile People, point to another direction and show the way to how can we work really to create value in a complex world.
Yeah.
It's about trial and error. It's about working more towards purpose and letting people self-organize towards that purpose and not focusing on the profit and the income, because you should focus on the value creation. If you do that, profit and income will be a consequence of that value creation. So it's not something where we have our focus. So we move from profit to purpose, and we move from hierarchical, rigid organizations to more network-based organizations where people communicate and make decisions together and drive themselves in a common direction. And we move away from the micromanagement and the controlling. We understand that leaders need to tell the why and the what. And they need to
exactly.
tell to the people who has the knowledge and the information and who are out there and closer to customers. And from planning to experimentation, instead of thinking that we can predict the future, which is absurd. Of course we cannot predict the future. Of course we cannot know what will happen. So instead we work with experimentation and short iterations and sprints and shorter cycles to create value, and then to take the next step as we see the results from the previous step. Then we can build the next short step.
And of course,
and the last one on this image is transparency, about making information and knowledge as transparent as possible to all the people, because otherwise we cannot make those decisions out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great diagram, really, doesn't it? Showing the mindset shifts. It's really quite powerful, really, isn't it?
Kudos to the people who made this image, because it wasn't me, unfortunately. You see at the bottom, it's Pia-Maria and from Aspire.com who made this very nice image.
Yeah, I think it's very straightforward as well. But once you look at it through like that, it really is that mindset and that culture almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
That needs to play such a huge part in transformations.
Yes.
Let's look at the internal and external as well, because obviously that's a huge thing in the 4 organizational windows, isn't it?
Yes. So this one is inspired by Ken Wilber's quadrants, and it consists of 4 different parts. It's the intrinsic, internal, individual part, and then it's the external equivalent of the individual. So the internal part are the psychological needs and values, personal values and basic desires that each person has inside. This is not visible on the outside. And then we have the external view of a person or an individual, where we see how people behave, we hear what they say, we can see their skills and their knowledge, and we can see that they are competent in different areas. And then the organization has exactly a mirroring, we can see the organization in a mirrored way, the norms, the culture, values, and so on. It's not in the wall, but it's really in people's heads. You know, we say the culture is in the wall, but it's not. It's in people's heads, and people create the culture together by behaving in different ways, by showing habits. So it's a summary of all the behaviors and habits that people show in an organization. And then we have the harder part, so to speak, the structure, systems, processes, methods, and tools. And this is what we usually try to change when we do an agile transformation. It's the structure, systems, processes, methods, and tools. But we don't remove the old structures. We only add new tools like Kanban boards and Scrum, ways of working, and so on. So the problem becomes that we have a conflict between the old rigid processes and new, more agile ways of working. Instead we need to make sure that we keep a balance in this picture. So the balance between culture and structure. An example of an imbalanced system would, we have a value that says that we value collaboration, for example, and then we reward people with the help of individual bonuses and to reach individual targets. And this is, of course, a structure that doesn't enhance collaboration, but on the opposite. On the contrary, it moves the organization in a direction of competition instead. So balance is extremely important in this figure, but that is a quite advanced picture, I would say. But it's very useful when you think about an organization and you can see, okay, now we did something in this window. What about the other one? How does that affect the other side, so to speak? And how does that affect people? And how can we balance up the behaviors that people have and the skills that people have with the tools that we provide, so that people can really use the tools and the systems that we provide to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there was something about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, a lot of it, like you say, also comes down to collaboration and communication, doesn't it? I mean, the HR department are really the cornerstone, aren't they, in an agile organization? That they have the drive and the vision, if you like, of where the organization is going, which everybody should have as well, with a mission and a vision of an organization. But in terms of HR being the cornerstone, because they can reach out to the next, not just next generation necessarily, but new employees to come in to continue that growth of an organization.
Yeah, HR has a very wide and deep responsibility in an organization. They have all these deep processes like performance management, competence management, recruitment, workforce planning, organizational development, change management. They also decide on the leadership programs. So many fingers everywhere in the organization, in the structure and culture. Even the environment, the physical work environment, it's HR who is responsible for all these things. So it's a huge responsibility, and the organization doesn't have a chance to change if HR is not on board. Of course, together with leaders and managers, they also need to be on board, and they need to work closely together, especially with finance management, because finance also have a lot of structures that are hindering people to perform and be happy. So HR and finance need to work cross-functionally together with managers in cross-functional business teams for the organization to be able to change. If they continue to work in silos, there is not a chance that the organization can achieve greater agility. I want to say, not become agile, because an organization, the goal is never to become agile. The goal is to achieve greater agility, to be able to adapt to a changing world, right?
Sure.
A complex world. And this is my very simple image.
I love this. I think it's great. We had to include this one, didn't we?
Yeah. So engaged. Really, HR's responsibility is to create these engaged employees, and engagement for me is a combination of employee satisfaction and organizational contribution. One is not enough. It's not enough to be only happy and satisfied. It's not enough to only always deliver all the results to the organization or hit your goals every month, because then you become a crash and burner, right? So we need both to be engaged, and that's the definition of engagement, that you have both employee satisfaction and organizational contribution at the same time. This is an engaged employee. Happy performing people, they will create our happy customers who are loyal to us, who come back and buy again, and then we can create a profitable company. That's a consequence of the value creation that the people are then empowered to perform. And then we can realize the dream, because we cannot stop with a profitable company today either. It's not enough to say that our highest goal is to deliver value to the shareholders, because young people today won't buy that. They don't want to work their whole lives in a company whose highest goal is to create value to the shareholders. They want to do something meaningful. They want to have a valuable life and know that they made a difference. You know?
Absolutely. Yes, that's it, isn't it? Am I right in saying as well that engaged employees at the moment, across the board, is few and far between? I mean, I've seen some stats recently purporting that fact. It's very high that in terms of organisations don't have that engagement with their employees, and it's almost like it's like the cup that they're all charging for almost. That's what they obviously want, engaged employees. And they're doing the ones that are really making a difference and starting on this plan and this process are trying to do all they can to engage with their employees, aren't they?
Yes, and Gallup makes a survey regularly. It's called The State of the Global Workplace.
Right.
Came out last time in 2016, and the results are very depressing because we only have 15% of actively engaged employees in the world. We have 18% of actively disengaged employees in the world. And these disengaged employees, they destroy the value that these 15% of engaged employees have created. And in the middle, we have 67% of indifferent people who go to work, do their jobs, but don't drive themselves with ambition and passion towards company goals. And that's a huge problem, but it's also a huge opportunity that top management fail to see the value of, which is kind of depressing, because if we could turn some of these indifferent employees who are indifferent many times because of the structures that companies are providing, held by HR and finance. They cannot realize their whole potential in companies today because of these structures, and that's why they are not engaged. If we then let them, perform and be happy by limiting these finance and HR structures, then we could increase the number of engaged employees considerably. I am totally convinced about that. So this is a huge source of return on investment that is neglected by top management today. So what managers think matters is not what really matters for people today. And that's also proven by this Gallup research. It's a fantastic report. It's downloadable online. It's a PDF, Global State of the Global Workplace, it's called. So the things that matter are things like recognition and collaboration and responsibility, autonomy, motivation and trust and belonging and learning and the shared vision and purpose at the top.
Yes.
These are things that people think matter a lot. And
yet
managers might think that managers might think that it's fear and bonuses and clear rules and competition and supervision and career ladders, etc. that matters. But the only thing that these two images have in common is a decent market-based salary. Everybody wants and needs a decent market-based salary. So, and it should be as fair as possible. When it comes to salaries, fairness is the most important thing for people.
And there's a huge void between those, though, isn't there? What many managers believe matters, and why are they getting it so wrong, do you think?
I think it depends on the old cause and effect paradigm. Engineers are usually promoted to managers, and it has been like that in the industrial era for a very, very long time. This is the traditional way of making a career. You are a specialist, you are an engineer, and then you become a manager, but you bring your thinking, your engineering thinking that if we do this, and it was McKinsey actually from the beginning who invented management, and capital budgeting and pay for performance, and it worked like that in this time, that if you did something, you could rely on that something would happen. Take an example of a factory, a Ford factory. Henry Ford, he was not exposed to any competition at all. If he made manufactured 1,000 cars, he could pretty much sell 1,000 cars. So he could work with cause and effect relationships. Today, the world is a lot more complex. So times have changed, but management hasn't changed yet.
Interesting
This
perspective.
is the reason why it looks like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's look at the role of HR then, with obviously traditional management and agile management, because obviously agile management's a lot more fluid, isn't it? Innovation, speed, adaptability. It's a different level, really.
So I really got a new word yesterday, because Ari van Bennekom, who is one of the signatures of the Agile Manifesto, he visited us yesterday in Stockholm.
He was our signatory.
Sorry?
He was our signatory. He signed for us.
Okay.
DSDM
I didn't know
consortium.
that. Nice.
Yeah.
So he was here yesterday. He came to Stockholm and he visited the Agile People meetup group, and we talked about organizations, and people think that now we can become agile and we implement agile and so on, but that's not something we do. Of course not. It's just a change of state. It's moving from a stable state to a fluid state. And that's exactly what it is. In a fluid state, everything moves all the time. That's why you cannot make rigid plans. So the stable state, that's when we have order and control. That's when we have a top-down hierarchical organization with fixed reporting paths, where we have a system, a process, a method, and a report for everything we do. It's called administrative management or administrative leadership. And in an agile organization, is that everything is fluid. There we focus on the speed, on the customers, and HR's role become totally different in that kind of organization. It's about supporting adaptability, making it easy for the organization to adapt and perform, and for people to be happy and to use people at the full potential that they have, letting them be who they are and letting them do what they can do. That's what I usually say. Let people be who they are and do what they can do, because they know very well how they can contribute to people. And it comes back to the X and Y view of people, really, that McGregor talked about. The X view is when we believe that people are lazy, they don't want to take responsibility, and they would avoid to work as much as they can. And you need to use a carrot and a whip to make people work. But the Y view is a belief that people really want to work, and if they get the right conditions and the right prerequisites, which is the thing we are not giving them, then they can create wonders. They are creative, they take responsibility, they will move a lot faster and create a lot more value for customers. If we have a common direction, we have simple rules, and we also have passion, and engagement to reach that higher purpose or our dream. What is this company here on earth for? What is the purpose of this company? Why are we in this world? What kind of value are we creating for a customer? So this is a totally different role that HR needs to take in the new world. Very big difference. And this image, I love it. It's from Bersin by Deloitte. And it's from 2011. When I started to work with Agile HR, I created a training and ran it for the first time in 2011. And then I met with Josh Bersin. It was a fantastic meeting. And in this presentation that he gave at the time, this image was part of that. So I've been using it ever since, because I think it's very good.
It is very good. And it's very clear as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And nothing has really changed since 2011. And then people ask me, so what has happened in HR since then? Well, not a lot, actually. There's not a lot that has happened in HR since 2011. There is still, it's the last year that people have started to move, I feel. So now people are listening. Before I had 2, 3, 4 persons in my trainings. Now I have up to 74, as I had in Cape Town a couple of months ago. 74 persons in my training in the same class. That's amazing. Yeah, so people are really opening their eyes now and listening a lot more than before, which is, of course, very, very nice for people like me and you.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think they're seeing the value now, aren't they? The value that you saw, when you first started and you first went to that Agile meeting, if you like, when you heard about a new way, and it really struck you with such aggression in a way that you was kind of quite taken back by it. I think it's filtering through, and I think everybody wants to work in a much more fluid environment where you're closer to the solutions and you can really make a difference. I mean, I'm working in an agile organization, and I can't imagine really working in a non-agile organization.
No.
Once you're in one and you're experiencing it, to go back to maybe, if we call it the traditional management style of an organization, it must be a real shift in every way imaginable.
It must be. And now my call, of course, is to open people's eyes to this and to make them see what could it be like and how could we work if we didn't have this fixed mindset that things need to be in a certain way because they've always been like that.
That's right.
There is no alternative. So it's about growth and fixed mindset, really. We need people, a lot more people with a growth mindset. And we have some principles that kind of summarizes what is Agile HR. And if we then have the more traditional way of working on the left side here, and we have the more agile way of working on the right side.
Okay,
it's about moving from developing rules and standards to supporting flexibility, speed, and collaboration. It's about, instead of delivering things to the customers, to managers and employees, we need to do it together with managers and employees, involving our customers in the delivery process. They need to take an active part in that. And instead of working with different HR roles, we need to strive towards more T-shaped HR people that can take many different HR roles. And we need also to work in teams in HR, cross-functional teams, to together to deliver to the value to the organization. You can see similar themes from jobs and positions to playing many different roles, from HR projects to stable, high-performing teams, from promotions and bonus programs to salary formulas and profit sharing. Totally new ways of working when it comes to how do we decide on performance, how do we decide on performance-related pay and salaries, and how do we work with recruitment, how do we work with learning, and so on. A lot of new tools, a lot of new ways of working.
Sure.
And it's about really tailoring for unique individual needs also in this. It's not just all about teamwork. It's to understand every person on an individual level. Where can this person create the most value, and how can I, as an HR person or as a manager, support that person to explore their full potential and find the place in the organization where they can really, flourish and be at their best. And it's about, in the platform here is your human view. How do you view other people? Do you view them as lazy, or do you think and believe in people? And when we do think and believe in people, then they have a tendency to take responsibility and to show us that really you can trust me. I will manage to do this. When we don't try to control them, because you cannot make anybody perform. You can only create conditions for performance. You cannot teach anybody anything. You can only create conditions for learning. People can only teach themselves. And you cannot motivate people. You can only create conditions for motivation. And it's different for everybody. You need to tailor that towards unique needs, because we are all so different. I work with motivation and basic needs and psychological desires. And this is very different in people. It's that blind corner in the Wilber's quadrants, in the 4 organizational window, that we cannot see. It's invisible. We cannot see what drives people, what makes people do what they do. We can only, talk to them to try to understand, and then they will tell us.
Sure, of course. I mean, it all looks so straightforward in so many ways to me, looking at the principles, the from and the to, where we need to move to. I mean, it really does. And yet, yeah, there's still those issues out there that
there is it's so hard to change your mindset, to think in a different way and a new way. But many people tell me when they attend my training or when I speak that this is so obvious. Why haven't we done this all the time? That's what people tell me.
I guess it's going against the norm, isn't it? And the culture that's already in place when you join an organization. And you just fall into it, I guess, don't you? If it is more of a traditional sort of organization, you literally fall into it because you want to comply, I guess, really. You want to be
This is what is rewarded, These are the management steering mechanisms that we use. And we reward the wrong things in organizations. And it's compliance that we are after. We comply with the rules and you will be successful. But that's not the case, actually. So why does HR need to lead this transformation? Because this is a people transformation. Agile is all about people. The first value in the Agile Manifesto is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And HR is the perfect function to lead this transformation from waterfall and traditional thinking and micromanaging to a more agile, fluid kind of organization where the network is key and where teams deliver together and are rewarded as teams. So people, organizations consist of people. Without people, it isn't an organization. Could you imagine an organization without people? I can't.
No, not
so,
at all.
HR, if they don't go first and try to change the way that they form their processes, their systems, their structures, there is no way for the organization to change. And this is what many agile teams on IT and in software development parts of the company have realized that they need HR on board. And management as well in the rest of the organization, because they can only go that far and become that agile before they hit the boundaries of the organization to other parts where agility has not yet started to grow.
Absolutely.
So finance, HR, and management. So liberating people by not closing them into job descriptions, fixed roles, instead striving towards T-shaped people and seeing your role as something that is a base. But I have a lot more different roles in the organization than just my job role. I have a role in the team. Absolutely. I have a role in the whole organization as well. I have a role when it comes to my career and personal development. And I also have a role when it comes to innovation, a responsibility to contribute to the creation of new products and services that our customers need and want for the future, so that we can secure, that we survive. Survival is the ultimate goal for a company, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think this slide is fantastic because it explains it so well as well. Job descriptions are boxes for standing on, not living in. So you can reach out, can't you?
Definitely.
Come out of the confines really and be more fluid in your approach.
People. Don't close them and say that, because then we get people who say, that's not in my job description.
No. Yes, we've heard that.
I'm not going to do that.
Yes.
We've all heard that. Right?
Yes. Yeah, in the past, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the surefire way to close down communication, really, isn't it? When that happens, so we all want to need to collaborate more. We need to be more fluid in our understanding and acceptance, really, and just realizing that we're all joined together and we can engage together for the good of the organisation, and we can do so much if everybody's on the same page and they're engaged. The world's your oyster, really. You can do so much in that space for the organisation, can't you?
Definitely. And Ari from Benicum, he said yesterday, that was interesting because I asked him, what's your biggest life learning? What's your biggest learning in life? And then he said, it's that you create your life. You are the architecture of your own destiny.
Yes.
And this is a realization that I think many people get with age and maturity. But also, it would be so fantastic if more people realize that earlier, because then we can really release both people and organizations. And the importance of perspective, yes, of course, we need to, create purpose and meaning for people. There is a huge difference. For somebody who is just, in this case, cutting stone, it's hard work, boring work, same thing, day after day. But if you have this vision, if you know that I'm not just cutting stone, I'm actually contributing to something bigger. I'm building a cathedral, and this guy can tell his grandchildren about this beautiful building that he helped build. It's a totally different game, right? We are not on the same map here.
Absolutely.
If you give people a purpose, a passion, and perspective, and meaningfulness in life.
And it's so important for that. I mean, what Ari was referring to as well, that, we are all the architects of our own life. And that, I think, needs to get in a level of almost like in the children's understanding as well. I mean, I do inform my children that, they can make a choice. They can be happy or they can be sad, kind of thing. It's like their choice. What do they want for their day today? Do they want to have a great day, or do they want a medium day, sort of thing? And
exactly.
And I think to actually tell a child that is so empowering, because they just think, I guess, even at that age, that they're going along and things are going to happen. But no, you can actually make things happen, can't you? Even at that age. And I think that's a really life lesson for them to learn as soon as possible, really.
Definitely. Yes. That's a beautiful story.
Well, I like the cutting the rocks and then the cathedral or the castle. I think the perspective is so important. It makes a lot of sense to me. It really does. And there's another story that I think Alan told me, the one that does What Makes Life Tick. Alan Furlong from Sherpa People Systems. He told me about the story about in an American hospital, I think it was, the cleaners in the one of the units used to move the pictures around. And so people, when they were on life supports and in comas and that sort of thing, in the I can't think of the name of the unit, but where people were very, very, very ill, they were moving the pictures around. So if they did happen to wake, they saw different things and saw different pictures. And they saw their work not just purely as cleaning and making sure the floors.
You know what is also a beautiful story that we could connect to this picture is the janitor at NASA, when somebody went and asked him, so what are you doing? Yes, I'm helping to put a man on the moon.
Yes.
He said, that's a beautiful story. That's exactly the same thing, because everybody's needed. Even if you do boring work, if you have meaning in your work, this is the most important thing. Right?
And you're right. It's so much perspective, and you can change that around so quickly, because you've got to put a positive grace on it almost, haven't you? And it could mean something so much different to you when you do that.
Definitely.
Let's talk a little bit about psychological safety, because I know at the conference we've had Google there in the past talking about psychological safety and people in teams, and it's really important, isn't it, to have that in teams?
I think it's the most important thing for a company to create that platform of psychological safety. Just last week we created a new game. It's called the Psychological Safety Game, which is a bunch of cards which would enhance psychological safety. And you can play it with a team or a group of people. And I think that's the platform that would then release everything else in a way, because if we have that, we can also trust each other, and then we can get the most out of people. Definitely. So if I would work on just one thing in a company, it would be to increase psychological safety in that company.
Absolutely.
And leaders here and HR, they need to go first. They need to show vulnerability and say, hey, I made a mistake. This is the way to create psychological safety in an organization. Then you open up for everybody else to do the same thing. And then we can really learn from mistakes.
Yes, absolutely.
Instead of looking for scapegoats or looking for people to blame. And then we release a lot of innovation and creativity. This is the basic for the innovation power in an organization. How can we create more and new products all the time? It's when we feel safe. It's when we are safe to make mistakes and that we can learn from each other's mistakes. Then we create a learning organization.
Yes, absolutely.
The fear of admitting mistakes and blaming others leads to that people are less likely to share different views, and then we fall victim for the common knowledge effect, which I have a story about that. Copernicus, you know, the guy who realized that the earth is round, it's not flat. And then he went and told the wise people, the scientists, about this. And they threw him in jail and said he was crazy. And that's an example of a common knowledge effect when many people knows this is the way it is. And somebody comes and questions that, the status quo, the known facts, you know. But he was right. And that could be something to think about in organizations as well. Instead, we want to create those very positive circles that would reinforce itself. We are comfortable admitting mistakes, we learn from failure, and then everybody will feel safe to openly share different ideas with each other. And then we create this innovation and decision-making climate that is so important for our survival and success as a company.
There's definitely a long way to go, isn't there? There really is, and let's hope we can, those Gallup stats can really rise in terms of the engaged employees, and HR can play a big part with that.
Yeah, we hope so. We are on a path. I have a mission, and I think there is a lot of people who have opened their eyes now and know that, okay, yes, we need to change HR. HR needs to support this new organization where we value different things than we have done in the past.
Yes.
It's about making people happy and performing.
No, that's fantastic. Well, thank you. We've come to the point in the webinar now where I can take some questions, and we've had some questions through. The first one I want to put to you, actually, Pia-Maria, is a question that's come through. Where is the start point to transform HR department to a more agile unit? That's a great question. So thank you so much for that, Sajad, for sending that one through.
I think you should start small. Doing something little, getting new habits. You can start with a daily morning meeting. You can start with a retrospective. I have many times I started with a smaller HR department to identify one project where they could work together. Let's say they were all working in their specialist areas before, and then we say, okay, we want to work more together. What is the project we can cooperate around? And then you create a kind of a small agile experiment around that project. So we build a Kanban board on the wall. We meet on a weekly stand-up once a week. We spend 3 hours every Friday morning, for example, working together on that project with our cards on the Kanban board and so on. So that's a way to start. But you don't have to do a big change. And when you start with small things like that, doing a retrospective, maybe once a month, talking about how can we constantly improve and learn and improve our ways of working together. When you start to do these things start to happen with people. They start to open up. We increase the psychological safety, and then we can take the next step. Maybe do a new experiment, try something else. try to work more together, create more T-shaped people in HR, and start to think about what about the deliverables that we want to deliver to the organization. How can we involve people in that? How can we ask if what we do is creating value, and start that cross-functional cooperation with other departments and the people that are our customers in HR. So start with yourselves. That's a good place to start. And then when you learn and become more comfortable doing these things, start involving also managers and employees in your work, and ask them their opinion. What is it you need, and how can we help you to succeed? These are good questions to start with.
That was a great question. It was a great opener, wasn't it? We've had another question in from a colleague over in America, actually. It seems like our top leaders only hear the good stories and don't want to believe that our employees struggle with teaming and vulnerability and flexibility. How do you tell the story of need for HR agility if they can't see the problem?
Can't see the problem.
Yeah, how do you tell the story of the need for HR agility if they can't see the problem?
Okay.
They need to see the problem, don't
they? Yeah, they need to see the problem. They need to understand that everything is not. Maybe you need to expose them in a better way to the problem. It depends on what is the actual problem, of course. In each particular case, there is a different problem, right? But I would, every change starts with awareness. Every first step starts with being aware that we need to do something, because we need to speak to management in management's way. They listen to return on investment, they listen to increased profit, they listen to market share, they listen to all these things that they traditionally see as success. This is a successful company. So we need to translate these soft values into terms that they understand. I think we need to speak with management in management's way. If you talk about engagement, for example, employee engagement, and you show the Gallup research, and there is a statement in there that says that businesses that orient their performance management systems around human psychological needs are the businesses that become the most successful and get the most out of their employees.
Sure.
And if they understand that if we get more out of our employees, that translates to, in the end, money and return on investment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a way, to convince them.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think that's fundamentally the issue, isn't it? If they're not listening, we need to somehow open the door so they do listen. It's the awareness thing, like you say, isn't it? And if they're only listening to the good stories and don't want to believe our employees are struggling with teaming and vulnerability and flexibility, it's almost like they need to help their people a lot more. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. And often, top management is often convinced, because their highest goal is often to create increased business agility. Also, the teams, the operational teams, they are also convinced, but then we have middle management that could be a problem in organizations. Or if I'm Benicum, you refer to them as the permafrost layer.
I wonder if it's referred to as the permafrost layer.
That's middle management, right?
Right.
Who are stopping the organization from changing because they have the most to lose. Maybe.
I see.
They will lose power and status and all these things. But the thing is that power and status can be achieved in many different ways. So these are basic human needs, and they can be achieved differently than in the traditional way. So that's also something to remember. But yes, management could be a problem, but we are, I think, approaching a time where also middle management understand that there is no other path than towards greater agility for most organizations in a complex world.
Yes,
And
yes.
the
There's a
awareness
movement,
is
isn't
growing
there?
every day now.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. I think we're reaching a really quite an exciting time. Okay, we've got time for one more question. So you've been talking about T-shaped people. So how do you create T-shaped HR people? That's coming from Addy in
by
London.
letting them work more together and learning from each other. That's the best way to create T-shaped HR people. Find a common project that they could work on together, let them learn from each other, let them communicate a lot, that's the best way to create T-shaped HR people who can be both business partners and specialists and HR administrators. Let them learn from each other and coordinate their efforts and their deliverables towards the organization.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you for everyone who sent questions through to us. There was a few more, but what I'll do is I'll put some on the emails if you're happy to do that, Pia-Maria, and maybe put some answers on those when I send them out to everybody for the follow-up email with the link in for the broadcast. We'll answer some of the other questions just to make sure that we've got to all of them. There's probably about another 4 that we need to look at the moment, if that's okay, if you'd be happy to do that.
Sure, yes.
Because they're great questions, they really are, and it's just unfortunately because we've run out of time to actually. Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you. No, we really appreciate that. It's just that we've run out of time to fit any more into our hour. In all honesty, it's just absolutely flown by. So thank you so much for joining us, Pia-Maria, and giving us those amazing insights into Agile HR. The slides and the presentation, and also obviously the broadcast will be available to everybody. So please use it as a resource. Please go back to it time and again whenever you need it, really, and look over those slides, because there's a lot of content in those. The internal, external windows, the new rules and roles for HR, the mind shift patterns, if you like, that we were detailing, and then also obviously the Agile HR, the principles, the from and the to. That there's a lot of stuff to work through there, and if you're working in an HR environment, then keep the faith, I think, is probably a good way to kind of sum up. What do you think, Pia-Maria?
Definitely. Keep faith, and it will change.
Yes.
You have the power to affect the organization. You do have it. Sometimes it feels hard and slow, but things are moving and you can make them move faster. I'm convinced of that.
Absolutely.
Every human's potential. And I thank you, Jenny, a lot for this opportunity. And please buy my book if you're interested to know more about what I do and my writing, or come to one of my trainings. And,
Absolutely.
have a nice day, Jenny.
Thank you, Pia-Maria. Look, I really appreciate it. Thank you again for your time, and thank you everybody for joining us across the globe this morning, because as I said, there's people from all over. So have a good evening, have a good afternoon, have a good morning, everybody that's joining us today. And thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it. And if I could get a signed copy of your book, that would be amazing. I'd really appreciate that and treasure it. I think it's a really good read. I've definitely seen snippets, and it's wonderful. So brilliant. Thank you again for joining us today. That's the end of our webinar. There's just a tiny bit of time to tell us that the Agile Business Conference is in its 17th year now, and it will be happening in London on the 25th and the 26th of September. We're theming it this year actually as the case for business agility. I think we all know that there is a very strong case for business agility. There is a huge movement out there in business agility. We are part of it, and come along and join us at the conference. If you're a member of the consortium, you get some amazing discounts as well. So to look into that and come and join us at the conference, join the discussions, join the workshops, join the presentations. It will be wonderful to see you there. Okay,
and I'll be there as well, Jenny.
Oh, of course you will. Absolutely. Yes. We're going to be doing some great work together there. So yes, absolutely. In September, we'll definitely be seeing you again, if not before as well.
Forward.
It will be great. It will be great. It really will. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've got any feedback for me, please send it through to jenny@agilebusiness.org. My details are there. My direct number is there as well. So please do get in touch. But from me for now, thank you so much, and look forward to speaking to you again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.